Hey there, I'm Cam. Welcome to Raven Minis. Let's paint a really big squig. This is a squiggoth. Kidding, kinda. But this is a squiggoth. It's a large chunk of Forge World resin with quite a few mold lines and some big gaps around the legs. I filled the gaps as best as I could with green stuff, but the details around the legs made it really difficult to gap fill without there being like just a new big flat noticeable space around the legs where I put in the green stuff. So at a certain point, I just kind of gave up. It's important to note that this is less of a step-by-step tutorial than it is a documentation of my painting process. I primed this model in black with my airbrush, but as you'll see in just a moment, you don't need an airbrush to apply this primer. Airbrushing comes with its own problem. Jams, dry tips are common enough to be frustrating. Unless you have your paint consistency perfect, you'll be having trouble getting it to spray properly. Let's go back to the air booth to see what's going on. That needle is way too thin for priming. The 0.4mm needle is a hose compared to that last needle and is working much better. But even that became frustrating at a certain point. And I rage quit with my airbrush and just painted the howdah by hand. I'm quick to forgive. And I quickly ran back to my airbrush to base the squiggoth skin in a bright green. I lost the footage of my next step after airbrushing, but what I usually do is go back in and block in everything that's not green or my base color or skin with black. This helps me differentiate between all the different parts of the model. The armor panels are going to be two colors, a dark metal and a bright red. For the red, I laid down a base coat of purple. This will give me an easier time building up to my bright red later, but it's also going to be my shadow color. The metal is just Vallejo flat black and Vallejo Game Air silver. After the base coat, I go over all of the armor with a thinned down oil from Abtlung 502 called engine grease. This does pretty much what it says on the tin. It darkens the recesses and it gives some of the flat areas an oily sheen. Right now the skin is too bright, so I mix together some brown and green oil paint and start putting this all over the green area. After letting it sit for a bit, I take some makeup sponges and start pulling this darker green away from the raised area. After letting the oils dry for a day or two, I came back and started building up the areas that I wanted to be bright red. In hindsight, I could have done a better job at blending these areas, and the red looks a bit chalky in places. The red from Golden So Flat is deceptively thin and needs quite a few layers to create an opaque coat. When I bought this model from Forge World, I also bought the Ork Super Cannon, and I've desperately underestimated how big this was compared to the squiggoth, and it's way too big to fit on the model. So instead, I used the Ork boys that come with the squig as the crew. I didn't want these boys to look like regular boys that just got glued in there. I went into my Ork bits collection and I looked around to see what I had, and I found these bits that I bought a while ago from Spellcrow and put together a crew of pirate looking boys. I painted them really quick, and I didn't capture the footage of this process because there are so many videos on YouTube of how to paint orcs, how to paint orc skin, that I didn't need to try reinventing the wheel here. Once the red is built up, I go over all the metal with a quick dry brush of Vallejo Game Air silver just to bring those edges up again and be a bit more bright. The horns, claws, and teeth got a base coat of a brown. I then washed them with a really thin black, dry brushed over those with just an off-white. This model doesn't usually come with a base, but my transport and storage solutions all use mag. So I got this 170mm base from Cobalt Keep. I threw down some gravel and grit on there and some texture paint and did it real quick to make it look like a Badlands base like the rest of my orcs. And it's basically done. Before gluing into the base, I gave it a all-over spray of satin varnish, and the model's done. Is it my favorite paint job I've ever done? Absolutely not. But it's an okay tabletop quality. Did I learn some things along the way? Yeah, especially about recording myself while painting for YouTube. If you have any questions about my process or this model or me in general, go ahead and ask down in the comments. I'd really like to answer it in the next video. Otherwise, if you enjoyed what you saw, please like and subscribe. Thanks for watching.